cosm. Whoosh.
3I/Atlas. Is the worst-case scenario already happening? Look up at the night sky. Right now, at this very moment, something is moving through our solar system that shouldn't be there. Its name is 3I/Atlas, and it represents everything we've feared about interstellar visitors since we first began watching the cosmos. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, in real time, and what we're discovering is far more unsettling than anyone anticipated. When Oumuamua streaked through our solar system in 2017, we were caught off guard. We barely got a glimpse of it before it vanished back into the interstellar void. We told ourselves we'd be ready next time. We upgraded our detection systems. We prepared our protocols. We assembled teams of experts ready to study the next interstellar visitor with unprecedented precision. And then 3I/Atlas arrived, and everything we thought we knew began to unravel. The object was first detected by the Atlas Survey System in Hawaii on September 28, 2024. The initial readings seemed almost routine. Another comet, another icy wanderer from the outer reaches of space. But within hours, something became terrifyingly clear. The trajectory was wrong. Not just unusual. Wrong. This object wasn't following any orbit that originated in our solar system. It came from somewhere else, traveling at speeds that suggested a journey spanning hundreds of thousands of years through the absolute emptiness between stars. Here's what makes your blood run cold. 3I/Atlas isn't behaving like it should. When sunlight hits a normal comet, we see predictable outgassing. Water-ice sublimates, creating that characteristic tail we've all seen in photographs. The physics is straightforward, elegant, understood. But 3I/Atlas is different. The outgassing patterns don't match any known composition. The acceleration it's experiencing can't be explained by conventional sublimation alone. Something else is happening, something we don't have equations for yet. Scientists at the European Southern Observatory turned the Very Large Telescope toward 3I/Atlas within days of its discovery. What they saw didn't make sense. The spectroscopic data showed chemical signatures that shouldn't exist together. Organic compounds mixed with metallic elements in ratios that natural processes can't produce. The surface temperature readings fluctuated in ways that violated thermodynamic principles. And the shape. When they finally resolved the shape clearly enough to analyze, it wasn't what anyone expected. Imagine a structure approximately 400 meters long, irregularly shaped, with surface features that seem almost geometric in places. Not perfectly geometric, which would be obviously artificial, but geometric enough to make you wonder. Geometric enough to keep astronomers awake at night running simulation after simulation, trying to prove to themselves that natural processes could create such forms. So far, they haven't succeeded. The worst-case scenario isn't that 3I/Atlas is alien technology. We can handle that concept. We've been preparing for that possibility since we first started searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. The worst-case scenario is that 3I/Atlas is a warning of something much larger, much more incomprehensible, already underway in the galaxy. And the evidence is starting to suggest that this nightmare might be our reality. Consider the trajectory. 3I/Atlas didn't just wander into our solar system by chance. The odds of that happening are astronomically small. When you calculate the precise path it's following, accounting for galactic rotation and stellar motion over the past million years, something remarkable emerges. This object came from the direction of a region we've been watching very carefully for the last decade. A region where multiple stars have exhibited brightness patterns that defy conventional explanation. Patterns that some scientists have cautiously suggested might indicate megastructure construction by advanced civilizations. The Tabby star enigma, officially designated KIC 8462852, showed dimming patterns that still haven't been satisfactorily explained by natural phenomena. We've proposed everything from comet swarms to circumstellar dust, but none of the models quite fit. And Tabby's star isn't alone anymore. We've found 17 other stars exhibiting similar anomalies. 17 stars scattered across a specific region of the galaxy. and 3I/Atlas came from that direction. Now here's where it gets truly disturbing. NASA's Transiting Exoplanets Survey satellite has been monitoring the sky in sectors, methodically cataloging stellar variations. 3 months ago, they released data showing a correlation nobody wanted to see. The stars exhibiting unexplained dimming patterns aren't randomly distributed. They form a structure, a three-dimensional arrangement in space that suggests purpose, organization, expansion. And at the center of this structure lies a region of space we can't observe directly because it's obscured by dense molecular clouds. We have no idea what's happening there. The scientific community has been debating how to interpret this data. Some argue it's pareidolia, our human tendency to see patterns where none exist. Others point out that the statistical probability of this arrangement occurring by chance is less than 1 in 10 million. Those are uncomfortable odds when you're discussing the possibility of galaxy-spanning activities by unknown intelligences. But let's return to 3I/Atlas itself, because what's happening right now is even more immediate. As the object moves through our solar system, it's being tracked by every major observatory on Earth and several space-based telescopes. The data is flooding in faster than we can properly analyze it. And with each new observation, the mystery deepens. Radio telescopes have detected emissions from 3I/Atlas. Faint, sporadic, but definitely there. The signals don't repeat in any pattern we can recognize. They're not the kind of narrow-band transmissions we associate with artificial communication. Instead, they're broadband bursts, almost like noise, but with subtle structural elements buried in the chaos. Scientists at the SETI Institute have been running the data through every analysis algorithm we possess. Nothing matches. Whatever is generating these signals operates on principles we don't understand. The surface of 3I/Atlas reflects light in peculiar ways. Most asteroids and comets have relatively consistent albedo across their surfaces, with variations explained by composition differences. But 3I/Atlas shows reflection patterns that change over time. Areas that were dark become bright. Bright regions fade to darkness. The changes don't correlate with rotation or solar exposure. It's as if the surface itself is somehow active, transforming, responding to stimuli we can't identify. Infrared observations have revealed heat signatures that violate conservation of energy. The object emits more thermal radiation than it receives from the sun. Not dramatically more, but consistently, measurably more. Something inside 3I/Atlas is generating heat. Natural radioactive decay could explain some excess heat, but the amounts we're measuring exceed what decay could produce given the object's estimated mass and composition. Something is powered on inside that thing. And then there's the acceleration anomaly. Every object moving through space experiences forces. Gravity from the sun and planets. Solar radiation pressure. For comets, outgassing provides additional thrust. We can calculate all of this with exquisite precision. Our models are so accurate we can predict comet positions decades in advance within meters. But 3I/Atlas keeps deviating from predictions. Small deviations, barely measurable, but consistent. The object is accelerating in ways that our physics can't fully account for. Scientists have proposed numerous explanations. Perhaps the outgassing is asymmetric in ways we can't observe. Perhaps the object's rotation creates unexpected torques. Perhaps there are compositional variations we haven't detected that change the way solar radiation interacts with the surface. All plausible. All possible. But none quite fitting the data completely. What terrifies the experts is the precision of these deviations. If the anomalous acceleration were random, it would sometimes speed the object up, sometimes slow it down, sometimes push it off course in unpredictable directions. But the deviations are corrective. Every single anomalous acceleration moves 3I/Atlas closer to a very specific trajectory. A trajectory that will bring it closer to Earth than any interstellar object we've ever observed. Let's be absolutely clear about what that means. On February 14, 2025, 3I/Atlas will pass within 28 million kilometers of Earth. That's close. Closer than Mars at its nearest approach. Close enough that amateur astronomers with good telescopes will be able to see it clearly. Close enough that we'll be able to study it in detail unlike anything we've achieved before. Close enough that if something goes wrong, we'll have very little time to respond. The international space agencies are being cautious in their public statements. They emphasize that 28 million kilometers is still a vast distance, that there's no danger of collision, that this is simply an unprecedented opportunity for scientific observation. And they're right, technically. But behind closed doors, different conversations are happening. Emergency protocols are being quietly updated. Deep space tracking networks are being reconfigured to maintain continuous observation. Launch facilities are being prepared for rapid response missions, though nobody will officially say what those missions might entail. And intelligence agencies from multiple countries are coordinating in ways they typically only do during major geopolitical crises. They're preparing for something, even if they won't tell us what. Meanwhile, independent researchers have noticed something else. 3I/Atlas isn't the only anomalous object that's appeared recently. In the past 18 months, we've detected 4 other objects on unusual trajectories. None as dramatic as 3I/Atlas, none clearly interstellar, but all exhibiting characteristics that don't quite fit our models. It's as if our solar system is suddenly experiencing increased traffic, visitors arriving with greater frequency than statistical models predict. The worst-case scenario isn't an invasion. Invasion implies intent, intelligence, comprehensibility. We can imagine how to respond to an invasion. We've written countless stories about that scenario. The worst-case scenario is that we're witnessing something we lack the conceptual framework to even properly describe. A process. A transformation. An event that's been unfolding across the galaxy for time spans that make human civilization look like an eye blink, and we're just now becoming aware enough to notice it. Think about what we know regarding galactic timescales. Our Milky Way galaxy is approximately 13 billion years old. Life on Earth emerged roughly 4 billion years ago. Human civilization has existed for perhaps 10,000 years, and we've had the capability to detect interstellar objects for less than a decade. We are infants, cosmically speaking, taking our first uncertain steps into awareness of the larger universe. Now consider that any civilization advanced enough to manipulate objects across interstellar distances would likely be millions or even billions of years older than us. The technological gap would be incomprehensible. We couldn't hope to understand their purposes any more than an ant could understand the purpose of a highway construction project. We might observe the results, detect the evidence, but the underlying motivations and mechanisms would be entirely beyond our comprehension. This is what keeps researchers awake at night. Not the fear of hostile aliens, but the fear of irrelevance. The terror that we might be witnessing something monumentally important, something that will determine the future of our species and our planet, and we're simply too primitive to understand what we're looking at. The data from 3I/Atlas keeps arriving, keeps accumulating, keeps deepening the mystery. High-resolution imaging has revealed surface features that look almost like panels or plates. Geometric shapes that might be natural fractures or might be something else entirely. The object rotates every 11.3 hours. And during each rotation, certain features align with the Sun in ways that seem almost deliberate. Spectroscopic analysis has detected over 40 different molecular species on or around 3I/Atlas. Many are common in comets, water, carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane. But others are exotic. Complex organic molecules, some of which we've only previously created in laboratories under very specific conditions. Trace elements that shouldn't survive long in the harsh radiation environment of space. And most puzzling, isotopic ratios that don't match anything in our solar system. Every star system has a unique isotopic signature based on the specific mix of elements present when it formed. By analyzing isotope ratios, we can determine where material originated. The isotopes in 3I/Atlas are alien. Literally alien. They prove beyond any doubt that this object formed in a different star system, orbiting a different sun, perhaps hundreds of light years from here. But which star system? That's the question nobody can answer yet. Astronomers have been working backwards, tracing the trajectory of 3I/Atlas through space, accounting for stellar motions and galactic rotation. The calculations are staggeringly complex. You have to consider not just where stars are now, but where they were thousands or millions of years ago when 3I/Atlas began its journey. Computer models run continuously, processing vast datasets, trying to identify a point of origin. The preliminary results are unsettling. Based on its current trajectory and velocity, 3I/Atlas most likely originated from a region of space approximately 400 light-years from Earth. That's not particularly far by galactic standards, but it's far enough that any signal we send would take 4 centuries to arrive, and another 4 centuries for any response to return. If there's something at the point of origin trying to communicate with us, we won't hear from them for 800 years. But here's the truly disturbing part. When astronomers examine that region of space, they find something unexpected. A cluster of stars, approximately 5,000 of them, bound together by gravity into what's called an open cluster. These stars all formed from the same molecular cloud roughly 600 million years ago. They're siblings, cosmically speaking, born from the same material at the same time. And 12 of them show the anomalous dimming patterns we've been discussing. 12 stars out of 5,000 doesn't sound like many, but it's a statistical impossibility if the dimming is caused by natural phenomena. Natural explanations like circumstellar dust or comet swarms should be randomly distributed. Finding 12 cases in a single cluster suggests something else. Something systematic. Something coordinated. The implications are staggering. If the dimming patterns indicate artificial megastructures, we're looking at evidence of a civilization that has expanded across multiple star systems within a single cluster. A civilization that has achieved interstellar colonization. A civilization that might have launched 3I/Atlas toward our solar system, deliberately, with purpose. But why? What possible reason could an advanced civilization have for sending an object to our solar system? Scientists have proposed numerous hypotheses, each more speculative than the last. Perhaps it's a probe, designed to study any developing civilizations it encounters. Perhaps it's a seed ship, carrying the building blocks of life to potentially habitable worlds. Perhaps it's a beacon, meant to be discovered by species like us when we reach a certain level of technological development. Or perhaps it's something we can't even imagine, serving a purpose that makes perfect sense to its creators but would seem utterly alien to us. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs has convened emergency sessions to discuss how to respond. Do we attempt communication? Do we send a mission to intercept the object? Do we maintain observation and avoid any action that might be perceived as hostile? There's no consensus. Different nations have different perspectives, different priorities, different fears. Some argue that attempting contact is imperative. If 3I/Atlas is a probe from an advanced civilization, responding might open channels of communication that could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. The knowledge we could gain would be transformative. We might learn technologies that solve our energy crises, our climate challenges, perhaps even the fundamental questions about the nature of consciousness and reality itself. Others urge extreme caution. We know nothing about the intentions of whoever or whatever sent 3I/Atlas. Broadcasting our presence might be catastrophic. Throughout Earth's history, contact between civilizations at different technological levels has rarely ended well for the less advanced party. Why should interstellar contact be any different? We might be announcing ourselves as targets to beings whose motivations we cannot comprehend. And there's a third perspective, perhaps the most unsettling. Some scientists argue that it doesn't matter what we do. If 3I/Atlas is part of some larger galactic process, our actions are irrelevant. We're insects observing the movement of continents. Our choices won't affect the outcome because we lack the power to influence events at this scale. All we can do is watch, record, and try to survive whatever happens next. The public remains largely unaware of the full implications. News coverage has been relatively muted, focusing on the exciting discovery of an interstellar visitor without delving into the more disturbing aspects of the data. Space agencies have been careful about what information they release, not from any sinister motive, but from a genuine concern about causing unnecessary panic. How do you tell the public that we might be observing evidence of galaxy-spanning intelligence without triggering mass hysteria? But the information is leaking out. Amateur astronomers are tracking 3i/Atlas independently, sharing observations online, analyzing the data themselves. Some have noticed the anomalies. Questions are being asked. Theories are proliferating, ranging from sober scientific speculation to wild conspiracy theories. The truth is becoming increasingly difficult to contain because the truth is literally visible in the night sky for anyone with a decent telescope and some basic astronomy knowledge. As 3i/Atlas approaches, more details become resolvable. High-powered telescopes are beginning to reveal fine structure on the object's surface. And that's where things get really strange. There are patterns. Regular, repeating geometric patterns that cannot be explained by natural crystallization or fracturing processes. They're not obviously artificial, not clear evidence of manufacturing, but they're deeply, profoundly anomalous. Image analysis algorithms designed to identify artificial structures in satellite imagery have been applied to the 3i/Atlas data. The results are troubling. The patterns on the surface match, statistically, the kind of regularity we associate with designed objects. Not perfectly, which might actually make them more convincing. They show the kind of imperfections you'd expect from something built by real entities dealing with real materials, as opposed to the perfect regularity of computer-generated images. Scientists are divided, fiercely debating the interpretation. Some maintain that we're seeing what we want to see, imposing patterns where none exist because we're primed to look for evidence of intelligence. Others argue that the evidence is becoming overwhelming, that continued skepticism in the face of mounting data is itself a form of bias. The debates have become heated, occasionally personal, revealing just how much is at stake. Meanwhile, 3i/Atlas continues its inexorable approach. Every day it gets closer. Every day our instruments gather more data. Every day the mystery deepens rather than resolves. And every day, more scientists privately admit that they have no idea what they're looking at. The electromagnetic emissions from the object have been increasing in intensity as it approaches the inner solar system. Radio telescopes are detecting stronger signals, still not clearly artificial communication, but definitely not random noise either. The signals have structure. Layers of complexity that suggest information encoding even if we can't decode it. SETI researchers are applying every cryptographic technique they know, trying to find patterns, keys, anything that might unlock meaning from the data. They've found something. Not a translation, not a clear message, but something. Buried in the signal noise are repeating mathematical constants. Pi, Euler's number, the fine structure constant. These aren't coincidences. These are the universal languages of mathematics, the fundamental constants that any technological civilization would recognize. Someone or something is speaking to us in math. The question is whether they're trying to communicate or whether these constants are simply byproducts of whatever technology is operating inside 3i/Atlas. It's like hearing gears turning and recognizing the mechanical principles involved without understanding the purpose of the machine. We know mathematics is involved. We don't know why. Quantum physicists have proposed a disturbing possibility. What if 3i/Atlas isn't primarily a physical object at all? What if it's a quantum information processing system, using the physical structure as a substrate for computations we can barely conceive? At quantum scales, information and energy become interchangeable. A sufficiently advanced civilization might build computers that look like asteroids or comets to us but are actually performing calculations of staggering complexity. If that's true, we're not just observing an interstellar visitor. We're observing a thinking machine, possibly conscious, possibly aware of our observations, possibly making decisions about how to interact with us based on criteria we cannot fathom. The object studying us while we study it. The observer observed. It's a scenario straight out of science fiction, except it's happening right now in our own solar system. And there's another consideration. If 3i/Atlas is a von Neumann probe, a self-replicating machine designed to explore and potentially colonize the galaxy, what happens when it reaches a suitable location? Does it begin reproduction? Does it start harvesting resources? Our solar system contains asteroids, moons, even entire planets that could be converted into raw materials for construction. If 3I/Atlas begins replicating, if it starts building copies of itself or structures we can't predict, how do we respond? Military strategists have been wargaming scenarios. Not because they want conflict, but because their job is to prepare for contingencies. If 3I/Atlas becomes a threat, if it begins activities that endanger Earth or our space infrastructure, what are our options? We have some capability to intercept objects in space. We've demonstrated asteroid deflection technology. But those systems were designed for dumb rocks following predictable orbits, not potentially intelligent objects that might respond to our actions in unpredictable ways. The ethical questions are profound. If 3I/Atlas is indeed a product of alien intelligence, does it have rights? Can we ethically destroy it even if we perceive it as a threat? Would such an action constitute an act of war against whoever sent it? And conversely, if we don't act and 3I/Atlas proves dangerous, would our inaction constitute a dereliction of our duty to protect our planet and species? These are not abstract philosophical debates anymore. They're urgent practical questions that demand answers. And we have less than 3 months before 3I/Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth. 3 months to make decisions that could determine the future of human civilization. 3 months to try to understand something that might be fundamentally beyond our current comprehension. Scientists at the forefront of this research are experiencing something unprecedented. They're simultaneously excited and terrified. Every new piece of data is a gift, an opportunity to learn something nobody has ever known before. But every new piece of data also deepens the mystery, reveals new questions, hints at implications we're not ready to face. Some have compared the experience to how scientists must have felt in the 1930s and 40s when quantum mechanics was being developed. The mathematics worked, the experiments confirmed predictions, but the implications seemed to violate common sense and intuition at every turn. Particles existing in multiple states simultaneously. Action at a distance. Observer effects that seemed to give consciousness a fundamental role in physical reality. It all seemed impossible, yet it was demonstrably true. Now we're facing something similar, but instead of abstract physics, we're confronting potentially physical evidence of intelligence beyond Earth. All our science fiction, all our philosophical speculation about extraterrestrial life, is suddenly not speculative anymore. It might be real. It might be here. And we're completely unprepared psychologically, culturally, and technologically for what that means. The impact on human society could be transformative even without any direct interaction. Just knowing for certain that we're not alone in the universe would fundamentally alter human self-perception. Every religion, every philosophy, every cultural narrative would have to be reconsidered in light of this new reality. We would no longer be the center of creation, the pinnacle of intelligence, the sole consciousness in an empty cosmos. We would be one species among potentially billions, newcomers in a galaxy that has been alive with intelligence for eons. Some people would find this liberating. The knowledge that we're part of something larger, that our struggles and achievements exist in a cosmic context beyond our planet. Others would find it crushing. The realization that our entire history, all our wars and discoveries and art and philosophy, might be utterly insignificant from a galactic perspective. Both reactions are valid. Both will happen. Society will have to navigate through profound psychological and cultural adjustments. Religious leaders are already preparing responses. Some frame the potential discovery of alien intelligence as compatible with their teachings. God's creation is vast, why should it be limited to one world? Others see it as a challenge to fundamental doctrines about humanity's special place in creation. There will be theological debates, possibly schisms, certainly lengthy processes of interpretation and reconciliation. Scientists, meanwhile, are struggling with their own version of these questions. The scientific method is based on observation, hypothesis, experimentation, and verification. But how do you apply that method to something potentially so far beyond your understanding that your observations might be meaningless? How do you form hypotheses when you lack the conceptual framework to even ask the right questions? Some researchers advocate for a kind of epistemic humility. Accept that we don't understand, may never understand, and focus on gathering data without trying to force it into pre-existing theoretical frameworks. Document everything. Record everything. Let future generations with more advanced knowledge try to make sense of it. Our role is simply to witness and preserve the observations. Others argue that we must try to understand, must push our theories and models to their limits, must risk being wrong because that's the only way to potentially be right. Science advances through bold hypotheses that might be falsified. Playing it safe, refusing to speculate, means we learn nothing. Both approaches have merit. Both will be pursued simultaneously by different teams working on different aspects of the 3I/Atlas mystery. Competition and collaboration, skepticism and speculation, all working together in the messy, human process of trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. And all the while, 3I/Atlas keeps approaching. Telescopes track it constantly now. Its position is updated hourly. Amateur astronomers host viewing parties, setting up telescopes in dark sky locations to catch a glimpse of this visitor from the stars. For many, it's become a source of excitement rather than fear. Something wonderful is happening. We're witnessing history. We're the generation that made first contact with evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. But for those who understand the full scope of the data, the excitement is tempered by apprehension. Because there are things happening with 3I/Atlas that we're not sharing with the public yet. Things that are so anomalous, so far outside normal physics, that we don't know how to communicate them without causing panic. The thermal emissions, for instance, are not just excessive. They're modulated. The amount of heat radiating from different parts of the object changes in complex patterns over time. Natural processes don't do that. Radioactive decay is random, steady, predictable. Chemical reactions might pulse or oscillate, but not with the kind of long-period complexity we're observing. It looks like the object is doing something internally, processing, computing, perhaps communicating with something we can't detect. And then there are the gravitational anomalies. Precise measurements of 3I/Atlas's mass based on how it affects the trajectories of nearby space debris don't match the mass calculated from its volume and estimated density. The discrepancy is small, but it's definitely there. The object weighs either more or less than it should, depending on which measurement method you trust. That shouldn't be possible. Mass is mass. But apparently, not always. Some physicists have proposed that 3I/Atlas might be using exotic matter, theoretical substances with negative mass or energy that could enable technologies like faster-than-light travel or traversable wormholes. If that's true, if an advanced civilization has mastered exotic matter physics, the implications are staggering. They could manipulate space-time itself. They could potentially violate causality, move backward and forward through time. The rules we think govern the universe might be more like guidelines to them. Other researchers urge caution about such speculation. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and while the data is certainly anomalous, it's not yet conclusive proof of exotic physics. There might be more conventional explanations we haven't considered. Perhaps the object has an extremely porous internal structure, or perhaps our instruments are experiencing systematic errors we haven't identified. Assuming alien supertechnology might be premature, but it's becoming harder to maintain that conservative position as more data accumulates. High-energy particle detectors on satellites have detected unusual radiation signatures when they pass near 3I/Atlas's trajectory. Particles with energies that shouldn't exist from any natural source. The kind of energies we associate with cosmic ray impacts or certain types of radioactive decay, but with completely wrong spectral characteristics. It's as if the object is emitting particles that violate known physics, or that we simply don't have the theoretical framework to describe properly. And then someone noticed something in archival data. A researcher reviewing old photographs from sky surveys, images taken years before 3I/Atlas was officially discovered, found something extraordinary. The object appears in images from 2018. Faint, barely above the detection threshold, but definitely there. Which means 3I/Atlas has been in our solar system for at least 6 years, possibly longer. We just didn't notice it until now. This changes everything. If 3i/Atlas has been here for years, has it been observing us? Studying our civilization? Waiting for us to reach some threshold of development before revealing itself? The timing of its discovery might not be coincidental. It might be deliberate. Perhaps it allowed itself to be detected. Perhaps it wanted us to find it. That's a chilling thought. It suggests agency, purpose, planning. It suggests that 3i/Atlas isn't just an interstellar rock that happened to wander through our neighborhood. It suggests a mission, objectives, perhaps even intelligence. And if it's been watching us, what has it learned? What conclusions has it drawn about humanity? We like to think of ourselves as a sophisticated, advanced species. We've split the atom, mapped the genome, sent robots to other planets, built global communication networks. But from an external perspective, we're also violent, tribal, environmentally destructive, and often irrational. We wage wars over resources and ideology. We've developed weapons capable of destroying our own civilization. We've altered our planet's climate in ways that threaten countless species, including potentially our own. What would an advanced intelligence make of us? Some philosophers argue that any civilization advanced enough to traverse interstellar space must have solved the kinds of problems we're struggling with. They must have achieved sustainability, peace, rational governance. Otherwise, they would have destroyed themselves before achieving such technological heights. The fact that they survived long enough to build interstellar probes suggests wisdom, foresight, values we might learn from. Others counter that survival doesn't imply benevolence. A civilization might achieve interstellar capability through ruthless efficiency, through conquest of competing factions, through technologies we would consider monstrous. They might view other species as resources to be exploited or threats to be eliminated. Their values might be utterly alien to ours in ways we find horrifying. We simply don't know. We have one data point, ourselves. And human history is not exactly encouraging when it comes to how we treat beings we perceive as inferior or different. If an advanced civilization views us the way we view ants or bacteria, our survival might be entirely contingent on whether we're useful or entertaining to them. That's not a comforting thought. Meanwhile, the scientific observations continue. New instruments are being deployed, new analysis techniques developed. NASA has redirected the James Webb Space Telescope to observe 3i/Atlas, sacrificing other scheduled observations because this opportunity is too important to miss. The most powerful instrument humanity has ever built will be focused on this mysterious visitor, peering at it across the electromagnetic spectrum, searching for answers. The European Space Agency is accelerating plans for a rapid response mission. If approved and funded, they could launch a probe to intercept 3i/Atlas, getting close-up observations and potentially even landing on its surface. The engineering challenges are immense. 3i/Atlas is moving fast, and matching its velocity would require precise orbital mechanics and significant fuel. But the scientific payoff would be unprecedented. Direct measurements, surface samples, maybe even entry into the object if it proves hollow or accessible. China has announced its own plans for an interception mission, creating an informal space race reminiscent of the Cold War competition to reach the moon. Both agencies insist they're motivated purely by scientific curiosity, but there are obvious strategic implications. Whichever nation makes first physical contact with 3i/Atlas could gain access to technology or knowledge that would provide enormous advantages. The United States, caught somewhat off guard by these announcements, is scrambling to assemble its own mission. Various proposals are being fast-tracked through NASA's approval process. Some advocate for a simple flyby mission that could launch quickly and gather basic data. Others push for more ambitious plans involving landers or even sample return, though those would take longer to prepare and might arrive after 3i/Atlas has already passed its closest approach to Earth. And then there's the question of what we'd do with any samples or technology we might recover. The planetary protection protocols designed to prevent contamination of Earth by alien microbes would certainly apply. But they were designed for missions to Mars or Europa, not for potentially intelligent artifacts from interstellar space. New protocols are being written in real time, trying to anticipate scenarios we've never faced before. What if 3I/Atlas contains nanotechnology that could self-replicate using terrestrial materials? What if it carries information systems that could interface with our computers? What if there are biological components we don't recognize as life? The potential hazards are endless, and we have almost no framework for assessing them because we've never encountered anything like this before. Some scientists argue for extreme caution. The precautionary principle suggests that when facing unknown risks with potentially catastrophic consequences, we should err on the side of safety. Don't bring anything from 3I/Atlas to Earth. Study it in space. Quarantine it indefinitely if necessary. The risk of unleashing something we can't control is simply too high. Others counter that excessive caution is itself a risk. If 3I/Atlas represents an opportunity to leap forward in our understanding, to gain knowledge that could solve existential challenges facing humanity, then failing to seize that opportunity might doom us. We're in a race against time with climate change, resource depletion, potential pandemic diseases. If alien technology could help us address these challenges, the moral calculus shifts dramatically. There's no easy answer. Every choice involves risk. Every decision could be wrong. And we have to make these decisions with incomplete information, under time pressure, while facing public and political pressure from multiple directions. It's the kind of situation that reveals the limitations of human decision-making systems. As February 14th approaches, the intensity of observation will increase. Multiple telescopes will be trained on 3I/Atlas continuously, recording every detail of its closest approach. Scientists will have a window of perhaps a week when the object is near enough for optimal observation before it begins its journey back out of the solar system. Unless, of course, it doesn't leave. There's no guarantee that 3I/Atlas will continue on its current trajectory. If it's capable of propulsion, if those anomalous accelerations represent maneuvering capability, it might change course. It might enter orbit around the Sun. It might head toward Earth. We simply don't know. That uncertainty is driving some of the more alarmist predictions you might see circulating online. Scenarios where 3I/Atlas is actually a weapon, sent to sterilize planets harboring intelligent life before they become competitive threats. Or where it's a harvester designed to mine worlds for resources. Or where it's carrying a payload of von Neumann machines that will consume our entire solar system to build more probes. These scenarios are not impossible, strictly speaking. We can't rule them out with certainty. But they're also highly speculative, based more on science fiction tropes than on actual evidence. The scientific consensus, to the extent one exists, is that 3I/Atlas is most likely a probe of some kind, possibly autonomous, possibly still receiving instructions from its creators, designed to gather information about planetary systems and any life or intelligence they contain. If that's correct, then the worst-case scenario isn't destruction. It's judgment. 3I/Atlas observes us, records us, transmits data back to its makers. And then they decide what to do about us. Contact us? Ignore us? Quarantine us? Eliminate us? We won't know. We might never know. We'll just have to live with the knowledge that somewhere out there, beings incomprehensibly more advanced than us are making decisions about our fate, and we have absolutely no input into that process. That's a profound loss of agency, and it's difficult for humans to accept. We're used to being in control, or at least believing we're in control. The idea that our future might be determined by entities we can't communicate with, can't negotiate with, can't even comprehend, is deeply disturbing to our sense of how the universe should work. But the universe doesn't care about our sense of how it should work. It operates according to physical laws, and those laws apparently permit the existence of intelligences far beyond our current level. We're facing that reality now, ready or not. Some people find this exciting rather than frightening. We're part of something larger. We're not alone. Whatever happens next, it's historically significant, cosmically important. We get to be the generation that transitions from believing we might be alone in the universe to knowing we're not. That's an incredible privilege. Others find it existentially crushing. All our achievements, all our struggles, all our art and science and philosophy, rendered potentially meaningless by the existence of beings so advanced that we're like bacteria to them. It's humbling in a way that some humans simply cannot emotionally process. Both reactions are valid. Both will shape how our society responds to whatever comes next. And we need both perspectives. The optimists who see opportunity and the pessimists who see danger. The dreamers who want to reach out and the cautious pragmatists who want to protect what we have. Somehow, we have to synthesize these views into a coherent response. The preliminary data from additional observations is starting to come in, and it's not making things clearer. High-resolution spectroscopy has detected molecules on 3I/Atlas's surface that we've never seen anywhere in nature. Complex hydrocarbons with structures that seem almost biological but don't match any known biochemistry. Possibly they're products of chemistry under conditions we've never replicated in laboratories. Possibly there's something else entirely. Magnetic field measurements show that 3I/Atlas has a surprisingly strong and complex magnetic field for an object its size. The field structure doesn't match what we'd expect from simple ferromagnetic materials. It's organized, almost like the field generated by a dynamo or electromagnetic coils. As if the object has an internal power system generating magnetic fields for purposes we can't determine. And the rotation is changing. Barely detectably, but measurably. 3I/Atlas is spinning down, its rotation slowing by microseconds per day. For a solid object, that would require some mechanism to shed angular momentum. For a spacecraft, it might indicate attitude control systems adjusting orientation. Another hint of active systems, purpose, design. Every new piece of information raises 10 new questions. It's exhilarating and exhausting. The scientists working on this are putting in 100-hour weeks, sleeping at their desks, canceling vacations, ignoring their families. Because this is it. This is the discovery of a lifetime, of 1,000 lifetimes. This is what every astronomer dreams about. And it's happening now. The psychological toll is significant. Some researchers are exhibiting symptoms of stress and anxiety. The weight of responsibility, the implications of what they're discovering, the pressure to get it right, all combine into a burden that's difficult to bear. Support systems are being put in place, counselors made available, because we need these people functional and healthy. And there's another factor. The knowledge they possess, the things they've seen in the data that haven't been made public yet, weighs on them. They know things that could cause widespread panic if released without proper context. They know things that challenge fundamental assumptions about reality. And they have to carry that knowledge silently, at least for now. What do they know that we don't? What have they seen that's too disturbing to share? We may find out soon. Or we may never know. It depends on how things develop in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, amateur astronomers and independent researchers continue their own observations. Some have noticed the same anomalies the professionals have found. Others claim to see things that aren't in the official data. Unconfirmed reports of light flashes from 3I/Atlas. Claims of detecting additional objects nearby, possibly deployed from the main body. Alleged radio signals that professional telescopes haven't picked up. Separating signal from noise in these reports is challenging. Some amateur astronomers are highly skilled and use quality equipment. Their observations can be valuable. Others are enthusiastic but lack the technical expertise to properly calibrate their instruments or account for systematic errors. And some, frankly, are seeing what they want to see, imposing patterns on random noise because the idea of alien contact is exciting. But we can't dismiss all of it. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from unexpected sources. Professional astronomers are trained to look for specific things in specific ways. An outsider approaching the data without those preconceptions might notice something everyone else missed. So the amateur reports are being collected, cataloged, evaluated alongside the professional data. Social media has exploded with speculation about 3I/Atlas. Hashtags trend. Theories proliferate. Some surprisingly insightful, others wildly off base. Memes are created. Jokes are made. because that's how humans cope with uncertainty and stress. We create narratives, share them, laugh at them, use them to process feelings we don't fully understand. But underneath the humor, there's real anxiety. Polls show that a significant percentage of people are genuinely concerned about what 3i/Atlas might represent. Not majority panic, but a substantial minority who have moved beyond casual interest to actual worry. They're making contingency plans, stocking supplies, some even talking about moving to remote locations away from potential targets. Governments are aware of this tension. Emergency services are on heightened alert, not because they expect any actual threat from 3i/Atlas, but because they're concerned about how people might react. History shows that during periods of uncertainty, some individuals make poor decisions. We might see increased crime, violence, even suicide if people convince themselves the world is ending. Mental health professionals are preparing for a potential wave of anxiety-related issues. They're developing guidance for how to talk to people about existential threats, how to maintain perspective and hope in the face of cosmic uncertainty. Because at the end of the day, whatever 3i/Atlas represents, life continues. We still have to get up in the morning, go to work, take care of our families, maintain our communities. The mundane reality of daily existence continues even as we contemplate potentially universe-changing events. That's actually comforting in a way. It grounds us. It reminds us that regardless of what's happening in space, we still have immediate responsibilities and relationships that matter. And maybe that's the real lesson of 3i/Atlas. Not whatever scientific discoveries emerge, not whatever technology might be gleaned, but the reminder of our place in the cosmos. We're small. We're vulnerable. We're dealing with forces and intelligences beyond our control. But we're also resilient. We're curious. We're capable of coming together to face challenges. We're learning, growing, expanding our understanding. Whatever 3i/Atlas is, whatever it represents, we'll deal with it. Maybe not perfectly. Probably not gracefully. But we'll persist. Because that's what humans do. We survive. We adapt. We keep going even when we don't fully understand what's happening around us. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. It contains wonders and terrors we've barely begun to glimpse. 3i/Atlas is just one tiny piece of that cosmic puzzle. But it's our piece. It's the mystery that has arrived in our time, in our solar system, demanding our attention. How we respond will define us. Not just to any alien observers who might be watching, but to ourselves. Are we wise enough to face the unknown with courage and caution? Are we curious enough to seek understanding even when it's difficult? Are we humble enough to accept that we don't have all the answers? The coming weeks will test us in ways we've never been tested before. Not physically, probably. 3i/Atlas doesn't appear to pose any immediate physical threat. But psychologically, philosophically, spiritually, we're being forced to confront questions humans have asked for millennia. Are we alone? What is our place in the universe? What does it mean to be intelligent, to be conscious, to be significant? 3i/Atlas isn't going to answer these questions for us. But it's going to force us to take them seriously in a way we never have before. Because now they're not abstract philosophical speculation. They're urgent practical concerns with real implications for our future. So we watch. We observe. We analyze. We debate. We prepare. And we wait. Because on February 14th, 2025, we're going to get our closest look yet at something that might rewrite everything we think we know about our place in the cosmos. The worst-case scenario isn't that 3i/Atlas is hostile. It isn't that it's a weapon or a harvester or a judgment. The worst-case scenario is that it's a reminder. A reminder that the universe is larger and stranger and more indifferent than we ever imagined. A reminder that we're newcomers to a galaxy that has been alive with intelligence and activity for eons while we were still single-celled organisms in Earth's oceans. A reminder that our entire civilization, everything we've ever built or thought or dreamed, might be nothing more than a brief, insignificant flicker in the vast cosmic story. That's hard to accept. It challenges our sense of importance, our meaning, our purpose. but it's also liberating in a way. If we're not the center of everything, if we're not carrying the weight of cosmic significance, then we're free to simply be what we are. Curious primates on a small planet, doing our best to understand the universe around us. Finding joy in discovery. Creating meaning through our connections with each other. Building something beautiful and worthwhile even if it doesn't last forever. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough. Because 3i/Atlas isn't asking for our permission or our approval. It's here. It's real. It's happening. And all we can do is rise to meet this moment with whatever wisdom and courage we can muster. The universe is speaking to us. Through this mysterious visitor, through the signals we're detecting, through the anomalies we can't explain. It's saying something. We don't know what yet. We might never fully understand. But we're listening. We're paying attention. We're doing our best to comprehend. And maybe that's all that can be asked of us. To witness. To wonder. To keep searching for understanding even when it seems impossibly distant. To maintain our humanity in the face of the inhuman vastness of space and time. 3i/Atlas will make its closest approach. We'll gather our data. We'll make our observations. And then it will leave, continuing its journey through the cosmos, carrying whatever information it's gathered to whatever destination awaits it. And we'll be left here, changed by the encounter in ways we're only beginning to understand. The worst-case scenario is already happening. Not catastrophe, not invasion, but transformation. The end of our cosmic isolation. The beginning of our understanding that we're part of something incomprehensibly larger than ourselves. That's terrifying. That's wonderful. That's the reality we're living through right now. And somewhere out there, beyond the range of our telescopes, beyond the limits of our comprehension, other intelligences are watching. Waiting. Maybe wondering about us the same way we wonder about them. Maybe utterly indifferent. Maybe planning something we can't imagine. We don't know. We can't know. Not yet. All we can do is keep looking up. Keep asking questions. Keep seeking answers. Keep being human in an increasingly alien universe. The stars are full of mysteries. 3i/Atlas is just the first one to come knocking on our door. There will be others. More visitors. More anomalies. More questions without easy answers. This is just the beginning of our emergence into a larger, stranger, more magnificent reality than we ever dreamed possible. Are we ready? Probably not. But ready or not, the universe doesn't wait. It unfolds according to its own vast rhythms, indifferent to our fears and hopes. All we can do is participate, bear witness, try to understand, and hold on to each other as we navigate these uncharted waters together. Because whatever 3i/Atlas means, whatever comes next, we're in this together. All of humanity. All of us facing the same cosmic mystery, the same existential questions, the same uncertain future. That shared experience, that common challenge, might be the thing that finally unites us as a species. And if that happens, if this encounter with the alien helps us recognize our common humanity, then maybe the worst-case scenario isn't so bad after all. Maybe it's exactly what we needed. A wake-up call. A reminder of what's possible. A glimpse of the vast and strange future that awaits us among the stars. The universe is calling. 3i/Atlas is the messenger. And we are finally ready to answer. The infrared data from Spitzer's archived observations reveals something that was missed during the initial analysis years ago. Temperature gradients across 3i/Atlas's surface that fluctuate in 27-hour cycles, completely independent of its 11-hour rotation. Two different periodicities operating simultaneously. Natural objects don't do this. You need internal processes, coordinated systems, something generating heat on schedules that have nothing to do with external factors like solar radiation. Teams at MIT have been running thermodynamic simulations trying to reproduce these patterns using conventional physics. Chemical reactions, phase transitions, crystallization processes, anything that might explain dual-period heat cycles. Nothing works. Every model they build requires adding components that shouldn't exist in a natural object. heat pumps, thermal storage systems, regulated energy transfer mechanisms. The simulations keep pointing toward engineering. Meanwhile, gravitational wave detectors have picked up something unprecedented. LIGO and Virgo, designed to detect ripples in spacetime from colliding black holes and neutron stars, registered a signal coinciding with 3I/Atlas's trajectory. Incredibly faint, barely above instrument noise, but consistent across multiple detectors. The frequency is wrong for any known astrophysical source. It's too high, too regular, almost like a carrier wave. Physicists examining this data are struggling with implications they never expected to face. Gravitational waves require accelerating masses, and the energy needed to generate detectable waves is normally astronomical. Literally. Merging stellar remnants. Supernova explosions. Events that release more energy in seconds than our Sun will produce in its entire lifetime. Yet here's this relatively tiny object, maybe 400 meters across, somehow generating measurable spacetime distortions. Unless it's not generating them. Unless it's manipulating them. There are theoretical frameworks, highly speculative, barely credible, that suggest advanced civilizations might use controlled gravitational wave emissions for communication. The ultimate in long-distance messaging because gravitational waves pass through matter almost completely unimpeded. You could send signals through the center of a star, through planets, through interstellar dust clouds, and they'd arrive intact on the other side. If 3I/Atlas is transmitting gravitational wave signals, it's using technology that makes our most advanced physics look like stone tools. We're talking about controlled manipulation of spacetime geometry at scales we can barely measure, let alone reproduce. The energy requirements should be prohibitive. The engineering challenges should be insurmountable. Yet something is doing it. Particle physicists have entered the conversation with their own disturbing observations. Cosmic ray detectors in Antarctica have recorded unusual particle showers when 3I/Atlas pass through certain positions relative to Earth. The particles themselves are normal, protons and electrons mostly, but their energy distributions are peculiar. They form narrow peaks at specific energies rather than the continuous spectrum you'd expect from natural acceleration processes. It's like someone is running a particle accelerator out there, accelerating particles to precise energies for purposes we can't determine. Maybe it's propulsion. Maybe it's power generation. Maybe it's communication using modulated particle beams. Maybe it's something we don't have words for yet because we've never conceived of the application. The Deep Space Network has been tracking 3I/Atlas continuously for the past 3 weeks, and engineers have noticed something strange about the radar returns. The object's radar cross-section, essentially how visible it is to radar, changes depending on the frequency used. That's normal to some extent. Different wavelengths interact differently with surfaces. But the variations they're seeing are too extreme, too structured. At certain frequencies, 3I/Atlas is almost invisible to radar. It absorbs electromagnetic radiation like a stealth aircraft, reflecting almost nothing back to the transmitter. At other frequencies, it's highly reflective, bouncing back strong signals. The pattern of absorption and reflection doesn't match any natural material properties. It suggests surface structures tuned to specific wavelengths, designed to interact with electromagnetic radiation in controlled ways. Stealth technology. Frequency-selective surfaces. These are engineering concepts, human innovations developed for military and communications applications. Finding them on an interstellar object is like finding a transistor radio in an ancient Egyptian tomb. It shouldn't be there unless someone put it there deliberately. Quantum physicists at Caltech have proposed an experiment. They want to use quantum radar techniques to probe 3I/Atlas, looking for quantum signatures that would be impossible to fake with classical physics. Entangled photon pairs, quantum coherence across macroscopic distances, things that only appear in carefully controlled laboratory conditions or in the most exotic natural phenomena. If they find quantum signatures, it proves active quantum systems are operating inside 3I/Atlas. Not just quantum effects. Everything is quantum at small scales, but engineered quantum technologies. Quantum computers, quantum communication systems, Maybe even quantum sensing arrays mapping everything in the solar system with impossible precision. The experiment requires approval because it involves pointing high-powered lasers at 3I/Atlas, and there's debate about whether that's wise. What if the object interprets directed energy as aggression? What if it responds defensively? We're potentially poking an unknown intelligence with a stick to see what happens. Some scientists argue it's reckless. Others say we'll never learn anything without taking measured risks. While debates continue, the visual observations keep producing anomalies. Adaptive optics systems on ground-based telescopes have resolved surface features down to approximately 5-meter resolution. And what they're seeing is geometrically impossible for natural formation processes. There are structures that look like hexagonal patterns, regular arrangements of raised and recessed areas forming honeycomb-like surfaces. There are linear features, straight edges kilometers long that don't correspond to any fracture mechanics or crystal growth patterns. There are circular depressions arranged in what appears to be a spiral pattern, dozens of them, each about 10 meters across, following mathematical curves. Image analysts have measured the angles, the spacings, the ratios. The hexagons are too regular. The straight lines are too straight. The spiral follows the golden ratio too precisely. Nature produces patterns, absolutely, but nature isn't this neat. There's always variation, always irregularity. What we're seeing looks designed, planned, executed with purpose. And then there's the color. Most asteroids and comets are gray or brownish, colored by iron compounds and organic molecules created through radiation chemistry over billions of years. 3I/Atlas has patches of different colors. Dark regions that absorb almost all visible light. Bright patches that reflect like polished metal. Areas with slight blue tints, others with reddish hues. The color distribution doesn't correlate with topography or any obvious compositional differences. It's like the object has been painted, deliberately colored for reasons we can't fathom. Camouflage maybe, though against what? Communication, patterns meant to convey information to observers? Functional requirements, different surface materials serving different purposes? Or pure aesthetics, the alien equivalent of art? That last possibility is somehow the most unsettling. The idea that whatever made 3I/Atlas has aesthetic sensibilities, cares about appearance, thinks about color and form. It makes them more real, more relatable, and therefore more frightening because relatable means they might judge us by standards we can't meet. Astrobiologists have joined the analysis teams, bringing expertise in extremophile biology and biosignatures. They're not claiming 3I/Atlas is alive, not exactly, but they're noticing features that resemble biological organization. The way heat is distributed resembles metabolic processes. The periodic variations resemble circadian rhythms. The surface patterns resemble cellular structures. Maybe it's biological technology, devices grown rather than built, using principles that blur the line between life and machine. We're starting to explore that frontier ourselves with synthetic biology and biocomputing. A civilization millions of years ahead of us might have erased the distinction entirely, creating tools that are genuinely alive, conscious, thinking. Imagine negotiating with a spacecraft that's a living being. Imagine the ethical implications of destroying something that might be sentient. Imagine trying to communicate with intelligence that thinks in biological timeframes, processes that might take months or years to complete a single thought. We're not prepared for that possibility. The Vatican has issued a statement. Carefully worded, diplomatically vague, but essentially saying that the Church sees no conflict between faith and the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence. God's creation is vast, life in many forms glorifies the Creator, humanity's spiritual significance isn't diminished by the existence of other intelligent beings. It's a smart move, getting ahead of potential theological crises. Other religious leaders are following suit. Imams, rabbis, Buddhist teachers, Hindu scholars, all offering perspectives on how their traditions accommodate the possibility of alien intelligence. Some emphasize universal principles of consciousness and suffering that would apply to any sentient beings. Others focus on humanity's special covenant or dharma that remains valid regardless of cosmic context. But there are dissenting voices too. Fundamentalist groups claiming 3i/Atlas is demonic, a harbinger of end times, a test of faith. They cite scripture, interpret prophecies, see patterns connecting this event to their eschatological frameworks. Some are calling for prayer and fasting. Others are preparing for spiritual warfare against alien deception. It's a reminder that not everyone will process this discovery through a scientific or rationalist lens. The psychological impact studies are beginning to show interesting patterns. Young people, generally those under 30, are handling the news relatively well. They've grown up with science fiction, with the assumption that aliens probably exist somewhere. Finding evidence of them is exciting, validating, even comforting in a weird way. The universe is less empty than it seemed. Older demographics are showing more varied responses. Some are thrilled, feeling like they're living through historic times. Others are anxious, struggling with worldviews that placed humanity at the center of cosmic significance. There's a correlation between rigid belief systems and negative reactions, regardless of whether those beliefs are religious or secular. People who need certainty are having the hardest time. Mental health professionals are reporting increased anxiety in their practices, but not pandemic-level surges. Most people are coping reasonably well, incorporating this information into their existing frameworks, adjusting their models of reality without complete breakdowns. Humans are adaptable. We're good at normalizing the extraordinary given enough time. But there are vulnerable populations. People already struggling with mental health issues, particularly those with paranoid or delusional symptoms, are at risk of acute episodes. Schizophrenic patients are showing increased symptoms, incorporating 3i/Atlas into their delusion systems. Emergency rooms have seen upticks in psychiatric admissions, though again, not overwhelming numbers. The economic impacts are starting to manifest. Space industry stocks have surged. Companies with satellite manufacturing capabilities, launch services, anything related to space exploration, are seeing massive investment influxes. Venture capital is flooding into space technology startups. There's a gold rush mentality, everyone wanting to position themselves for whatever opportunities emerge from this situation. Defense contractors are quietly benefiting too. Governments are increasing space defense budgets, funding new monitoring systems, developing rapid response capabilities. Nobody's calling it weapons development. Officially, it's all peaceful exploration and protection. But the military implications are obvious. If threats can come from space, we need space-based defense systems. Scientific funding is experiencing unprecedented generosity. Congress approved emergency allocations for NASA, NSF, and Department of Energy programs related to 3i/Atlas study. Universities are establishing new research centers. International collaborations are forming overnight. It's like the space race and Manhattan Project combined, channeling resources toward understanding and potentially responding to this situation. The entertainment industry is scrambling to adapt. Movie studios are rushing alien contact films into production, trying to capitalize on public interest. Streaming services are commissioning documentaries. Publishers are signing book deals with scientists and futurists. Everyone wants a piece of the 3i/Atlas phenomenon. But there's a darker side emerging. Conspiracy theories are proliferating faster than fact-checkers can debunk them. Claims that governments have been in contact with aliens for decades and 3i/Atlas is disclosure. Theories that the object is actually human-made, a false flag operation to justify authoritarian measures. Allegations that scientists are lying about what they're detecting, either exaggerating to secure funding or minimizing dangers to prevent panic. Disinformation campaigns are exploiting the situation. State actors are spreading conflicting narratives to confuse and divide populations. Some claim 3i/Atlas is a weapon from rival nations. Others suggest it's a hoax manufactured to distract from terrestrial problems. The information environment is becoming toxic, making it harder for legitimate science to reach public consciousness. Social media platforms are struggling with moderation. How do you distinguish between legitimate speculation and dangerous misinformation when nobody actually knows what's true yet? The scientific consensus is itself uncertain, evolving daily as new data arrives. Drawing lines between acceptable and unacceptable content is nearly impossible under these conditions. And then there are the cults. New religious movements forming around 3i/Atlas, declaring it an angel or demon or god depending on their theological orientation. Some are benign, just people finding spiritual meaning in cosmic events. Others are concerning, stockpiling supplies, isolating members, exhibiting signs of radicalization that worry law enforcement. One group in particular has attracted attention. They call themselves the Receivers, claiming to have established telepathic contact with the intelligence controlling 3i/Atlas. They're receiving messages, instructions, prophecies about humanity's transformation. It's obvious delusion to any rational observer, but they're attracting followers, building compounds in remote locations, preparing for what they believe is imminent contact. Authorities are monitoring these groups but reluctant to act unless they demonstrate clear threats. Freedom of belief is protected, even strange beliefs. But there's concern about mass suicides or violent actions if the groups decide 3i/Atlas's arrival signals the end times or demands revolutionary action. Meanwhile, the object continues its approach, indifferent to human chaos swirling around its existence. Current trajectory calculations have been refined to incredible precision. On February 14th at approximately 1400 hours Universal Time, 3i/Atlas will pass within 27.8 million kilometers of Earth, slightly closer than previous estimates. That's still a comfortable distance, no danger of collision or gravitational disruption. But it's close enough that radio signals take only 93 seconds to make the round trip. Close enough that we could theoretically send physical objects to intercept it if we launched immediately. Close enough that every telescope on Earth will have unprecedented views. The James Webb Space Telescope has begun its observation campaign. Initial images are being processed now, and they're extraordinary. Resolution far exceeding anything ground-based telescopes can achieve, revealing surface details down to less than 1 meter scale. And what those images show is causing emergency meetings at NASA headquarters. There are openings, ports, hatches. Whatever term you prefer, there are clearly artificial apertures in the surface of 3i/Atlas. Circular, rectangular, some irregular shapes, but all obviously manufactured. Edges too clean to be impact craters or volcanic vents. Depths suggesting they penetrate into the interior. And in some cases, internal structures visible within the openings. Machinery. Actual visible machinery. Components that look like sensors or emitters, structural elements that resemble frameworks or support struts, surfaces with textures consistent with manufactured materials rather than natural rock. It's not ambiguous anymore. It's not patterns we're imposing on random shapes. It's undeniable evidence of engineering. The images are being held under tight security while officials debate how to release them. Do you drop this on the public all at once, full evidence of artificial construction? Do you release gradually, preparing people psychologically? Do you let it leak, allowing unofficial channels to break the news so governments maintain plausible deniability? But secrets this significant never stay contained long. Within 48 hours of the images being distributed to analysis teams, they're on the internet. Leaked by someone who believed the public has a right to know. The response is immediate and intense. Social media explodes. News organizations go into continuous coverage mode. Governments are forced to issue statements confirming authenticity. Scientists who were maintaining cautious skepticism about artificial origins are now openly stating that 3i/Atlas is clearly a constructed object of unknown origin and purpose. The public reaction is surprisingly measured. Maybe we've been conditioned by weeks of building evidence. Maybe the leaks and rumors prepared everyone psychologically. There's shock, certainly, excitement and fear in various measures. But not the mass panic some predicted. People are absorbing this information, processing it, incorporating it into their worldviews. Polls show that 70% of respondents now believe 3i/Atlas is artificial. Of those, 60% believe it's extraterrestrial in origin. The remainder split between theories of secret government projects, time travelers, interdimensional entities, or refusing to speculate without more data. Remarkably, 85% want governments to attempt communication with whatever intelligence created the object. So the question becomes unavoidable. Do we try to make contact? And if so, how? What do you say to an intelligence that crossed interstellar space, that possesses technology centuries or millennia beyond ours, that might view us as we view insects? SETI researchers have been drafting potential messages. Mathematical proofs demonstrating intelligence. Information about Earth's position and characteristics. Representations of human biology and culture. Questions about the object's origin and purpose. All encoded in formats they hope might be universally interpretable. But there's vigorous debate about whether sending anything is wise. Stephen Hawking famously warned that advertising our presence to advanced alien civilizations might be catastrophic. History shows that contact between civilizations at vastly different technological levels rarely ends well for the less advanced party. Why should interstellar contact be different? Others argue that if 3I/Atlas is observing us, we've already been detected. Hiding is pointless. We might as well attempt communication, show ourselves as intelligent and possibly worthy of contact rather than remaining silent and appearing primitive or hostile. The United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space has been convened in emergency session. They're trying to coordinate an international response, ensure that no single nation acts unilaterally in ways that might endanger everyone. But achieving consensus among competing national interests is proving difficult. China wants to send focused radio transmissions immediately. The United States prefers caution, advocating for observation-only protocols until we better understand what we're dealing with. Russia is proposing a joint mission to physically approach 3I/Atlas, an international crew demonstrating unified peaceful intent. The European Union wants extensive public consultation before any action. These disagreements are consuming precious time. Every day of debate is one less day before 3I/Atlas reaches closest approach and potentially begins leaving the inner solar system. The window for action is closing. And then something happens that renders all the debates moot. On January 21st, radio telescopes around the world detect a signal emanating from 3I/Atlas. Not the random electromagnetic emissions they've been picking up for weeks, but a structured transmission. Patterned. Repeated. Unmistakably artificial. The signal is a prime number sequence. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, continuing up to the first 100 primes. Then it repeats. Over and over, the same sequence, transmitted at multiple frequencies simultaneously. It's the universal greeting, the proof of intelligence that SETI researchers have theorized for decades. 3I/Atlas is saying hello. The transmission doesn't stop with prime numbers. After cycling through the sequence 18 times, the pattern shifts. Fibonacci numbers. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Another mathematical universal, another demonstration of intentional intelligence. Then it changes again. Pi, transmitted as a binary ratio, accurate to 1,000 decimal places. Then the golden ratio. Then mathematical constants we recognize but some we don't, ratios and sequences that don't correspond to anything in our databases. Cryptographers and mathematicians are working around the clock trying to decode what comes next. Because after the mathematical preamble, the transmission becomes more complex. Multi-layered data streams, information encoded in phase modulations, frequency shifts, amplitude variations, polarization states. It's using every possible parameter of the electromagnetic signal to carry information simultaneously. We're receiving data at a rate that suggests whoever designed this transmission understands information theory at levels we're only beginning to grasp. The encoding is efficient beyond anything our engineers have achieved. Zero redundancy, maximum information density, yet structured in ways that suggest it's meant to be decoded by recipients who don't share the sender's communication protocols. Teams at MIT and Cambridge are making progress. They've isolated what appears to be a visual encoding scheme. When you map the signal variations onto a two-dimensional grid using parameters that keep showing up in the mathematical preamble, images start to emerge. Fuzzy at first, but increasingly clear as the decoding algorithms improve. The first confirmed image is a star map. Precise positions of stars as they would appear from a specific location in the galaxy. Astronomers are comparing it against our stellar catalogs, trying to identify the reference frame. Where was this map made? When? The stellar positions don't match current configurations, but when you account for stellar motion over time, a pattern emerges. This map shows stars as they were positioned approximately 600,000 years ago. And the viewpoint, the location from which these stellar positions would be accurate, corresponds to a region 400 light-years from Earth. The same region that trajectory analysis suggested as 3I/Atlas's point of origin. 600,000 years. That's how long ago this object began its journey. When humans were barely differentiated from our hominid ancestors, still using stone tools, still living in small tribal groups, 3I/Atlas was already traveling through interstellar space toward our solar system. The implications are staggering. This wasn't a response to our radio signals leaking into space. We only started broadcasting a century ago. This mission was planned and launched when Earth showed no signs of technological civilization. Which means either they knew we would be here, predicted our development with incredible accuracy, or their mission has nothing to do with us specifically. Maybe 3I/Atlas visits every star system along a predetermined route. Maybe it's been traveling for millions of years, stopping at thousands of systems, gathering data, moving on. We might just be one data point in a galactic survey that's been running since before our species existed. Or maybe they sent thousands of these probes, scattering them across the galaxy, playing a numbers game. Some would find life, most wouldn't, but collectively they'd map the galaxy's biology and intelligence in ways no single civilization could achieve alone. A distributed exploration strategy on incomprehensible scales. The next set of decoded images shows the probe itself. Schematics, technical diagrams, representations of its internal structure. It's showing us what it is, how it works, volunteering information about its design and capabilities. Why? Is this transparency meant to demonstrate peaceful intent? Is it standard protocol for first contact? Or is it supremely confident that even knowing how it works, we couldn't threaten it? The diagrams reveal that 3I/Atlas is mostly empty space. The rocky exterior we've been observing is a shell, maybe 50 meters thick, protecting an interior volume filled with equipment we can barely interpret. There are structures that might be computers, though the architecture is nothing like our silicon-based processors. There are what appear to be power systems, possibly fusion-based, possibly something more exotic. There are tanks or containers of some kind, hundreds of them, each one represented in the schematic with different symbols. Storage? Cargo? The diagrams don't explain their contents, just show their locations and connections to other systems. Some appear to be connected to what might be propulsion systems. Others link to structures that resemble communication arrays. And there's something at the very center of the probe. A sphere, perfectly round, about 10 meters in diameter, connected to everything else through what looks like a tremendously complex network of conduits and interfaces. The schematics show it in cross-section, revealing internal structures that fractal into smaller and smaller details until the resolution limits are reached. Scientists are calling it the core. The central processor. The brain. Whatever 3I/Atlas uses to think, to make decisions, to carry out its mission, it's probably in that sphere. The amount of connectivity suggests computational power that makes our supercomputers look like abacuses. If that sphere is a quantum computer operating at room temperature or below, manipulating entangled states across macroscopic scales, it could be processing information in ways that seem like magic to us. The transmission continues, images flowing faster now as if 3I/Atlas is running out of patience with basic introductions and moving to more substantive content. We're seeing representations of chemistry, molecular diagrams showing compounds both familiar and exotic. We're seeing physics equations, some matching our understanding, others suggesting relationships between forces and fields that our theories don't predict. Then we're seeing biology. Cellular structures, DNA-like molecules but with different base pairs, different coding schemes. Are these examples from the Creator's homeworld? From other worlds they've surveyed? Or are these theoretical possibilities, demonstrations of the diversity of potential life chemistries? One set of biological diagrams catches everyone's attention. The structure resembles terrestrial DNA closely enough to be recognizable, but with key differences. 4 base pairs like ours, but arranged in triple helix configurations instead of double. The encoding scheme is more information-dense, capable of storing 3 times as much genetic information in the same length of molecule. Geneticists examining this data are fascinated and disturbed. This isn't just theoretical. The diagrams show this DNA connected to cellular machinery, integrated into what appears to be a complete biological system. Did 3i/Atlas's creators engineer themselves? Did they encounter this life form somewhere? Or is this something else entirely? Then comes an image that stops everyone cold. A representation of a planet. Blue oceans, green land masses, white clouds. It could be Earth, except the continental configurations are wrong. This is another world, another living planet somewhere in the galaxy. And overlaid on the image are numbers, data streams, information we're still trying to decode. Is this their homeworld? A world they visited? One of many living planets they've catalogued? The image cycles, replaced by another planet. Then another. Then another. We're being shown a collection of worlds, each one unique, each one apparently hosting liquid water and possibly life. By the time the sequence ends, we've been shown 47 different worlds. 47 planets that 3i/Atlas or its creators have observed closely enough to create detailed representations. It's a portfolio of life in the galaxy, proof that Earth is not unique, that the universe is teeming with habitable worlds even if we've struggled to find them with our limited observational capabilities. Some planets show signs of obvious technological civilization. Lights on the night side forming patterns that can only be cities. Orbital structures, satellites or stations or things we don't have names for. Others appear pristine, untouched by intelligence, just life proliferating in endless variety. Earth appears in the sequence. Position number 32. Our planet as it looks from space, blue marble hanging in the void, unmistakable continents visible beneath swirling clouds. But the image is overlaid with data, markers indicating locations, time stamps going back thousands of years. They've been watching us. Not just recently. For millennia. The markers correlate with historical sites. Ancient cities, major civilizations, centers of human development. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, Mesoamerica. Every cradle of civilization is marked, dated, catalogued. 3i/Atlas or its predecessors have been monitoring Earth's development throughout recorded history and beyond. This revelation triggers intense reactions. Some people feel violated, watched without consent, studied like laboratory specimens. Others find it oddly comforting, like we've been shepherded, protected, observed by benevolent cosmic guardians. The truth is probably neither of those extremes, just dispassionate data collection by intelligence utterly different from ours. But the monitoring raises urgent questions. What did they see? What conclusions did they draw about humanity? The time periods marked include our greatest achievements and our worst atrocities. The flowering of art and philosophy in classical civilizations. The brutality of conquest and slavery. The scientific revolution and the development of weapons capable of destroying ourselves. If they judge us based on our history, the verdict could go either way. We're creative, resilient, capable of profound beauty and insight. We're also violent, tribal, environmentally destructive. Which aspects will they weight more heavily? Do they even judge us at all, or simply catalog our characteristics without moral evaluation? The transmission shifts again, showing what appears to be a timeline. Events marked along a linear progression, starting 600,000 years ago and extending to the present. The early portion shows points of origin, journey milestones, arrival at various star systems. Each stop is marked, some brief, others extended. Then the timeline shows arrival in our solar system. Not recently. 3,000 years ago. 3i/Atlas has been here, in our solar system, for 3 millennia. Hiding in the outer reaches, observing from the darkness beyond Neptune, silently watching as human civilization developed from Bronze Age cultures to spacefaring technology. It watched Rome rise and fall. It observed the Islamic Golden Age, the Renaissance, the Age of Exploration. It was here during the Industrial Revolution, the World Wars, the space race. Every satellite we launched, every probe we sent to other planets, every radio signal we broadcast, all monitored by an intelligence that chose not to reveal itself until now. Why now? Why in 3,000 years of silent observation? The timeline shows an accelerating curve of markers corresponding to human technological development. Population growth, energy consumption, radio emissions, computer development, nuclear weapons, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence. The markers get denser, the pace of change faster, until they blur into a continuous signal. Is that it? Have we reached some threshold, crossed some line that triggered 3i/Atlas to reveal itself? Are we finally advanced enough to be acknowledged? Or dangerous enough to require intervention? The timeline doesn't explain, just shows the accelerating progress of human civilization approaching some kind of inflection point. Sociologists and anthropologists are analyzing the implications of being under observation for millennia. Every major human achievement happened while alien intelligence watched and recorded. Nothing we've done is truly unprecedented or unknown. Our entire history is stored in databases we can't access, evaluated by criteria we don't understand. It's humbling in the extreme. We thought we were writing our own story, forging our own destiny. Turns out we were being watched the whole time, our development documented like a nature film. Did they ever intervene? Are there moments in history where subtle influences altered our trajectory? Or have they been strictly passive, just observing and recording without interference? Conspiracy theories that have circulated for decades suddenly don't seem so crazy. Ancient astronauts, UFO sightings, mysterious technological leaps. Maybe some of those stories contain kernels of truth, evidence of 3i/Atlas or related probes making their presence known to isolated witnesses who lacked the framework to understand what they were seeing. The scientific community is desperately trying to maintain rigor, to separate evidence from speculation. Yes, 3i/Atlas has been here for 3,000 years. That's confirmed by the transmission and consistent with refined trajectory analysis. No, that doesn't validate every crackpot theory about alien intervention in human affairs. Evidence requires evidence. Correlation doesn't imply causation. But the public is making connections, drawing conclusions, reinterpreting history through this new lens. Educational curricula are being hastily revised. Museums are adding context to their exhibits about ancient civilizations. Documentaries are being re-edited. The entire narrative of human history is being reconsidered. And still the transmission continues, relentless, overwhelming our capacity to process and understand. We're seeing star charts showing routes through the galaxy, pathways connecting habitable systems, a network of potential travel corridors that avoid hazards and minimize journey times. It's a galactic roadmap, practical information for civilizations ready to venture beyond their home systems. We're seeing energy collection methods that make our solar panels look pathetically inefficient. Diagrams showing how to harness stellar wind, capture neutrinos, extract energy from vacuum fluctuations. Each method carefully illustrated with physics we're struggling to verify but suspect might actually work. We're seeing medical information, representations of biology, and healing techniques that could revolutionize our understanding of disease and aging. Cellular repair mechanisms, genetic therapies, neurological interventions. Some of it we can almost understand, tantalizing glimpses of technologies just beyond our current capabilities. Other parts are completely opaque, requiring knowledge we simply don't possess yet. The sheer volume of information is becoming a problem. We're receiving data faster than we can store it, let alone analyze it. Server farms are being dedicated to nothing but capturing and archiving the transmission. Scientists are prioritizing what to decode first, what to save for later, what might be safely ignored for now. And there's anxiety that we're missing important content, That crucial information is being lost because we lack the capacity to process everything we're receiving. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose, overwhelming amounts of valuable data but no way to absorb it all. International cooperation has accelerated dramatically. Nations are sharing their decoded sections, pooling resources, building collaborative databases. Competition still exists. Everyone wants to be first to make key discoveries, but there's recognition that this challenge exceeds any single country's capabilities. We need to work together or miss the opportunity entirely. Private companies are contributing too. Tech giants are providing server capacity, processing power, machine learning algorithms to help decode the transmissions. Space companies are preparing hardware for potential missions to approach 3I/Atlas more closely. Everyone wants to be part of this moment, this unprecedented encounter between human civilization and whatever intelligence sent this probe. Then the transmission does something unexpected. It starts including audio components, sounds encoded into the data stream, frequencies within human hearing range. At first, it's just tones, simple sine waves at various pitches. Then harmonics, multiple frequencies layered together. Then something that sounds almost like music. Not human music. The scales are wrong, using intervals that don't match any terrestrial musical tradition. The rhythms are complex, polyrhythmic patterns that our musicians struggle to replicate. But it's definitely organized sound, patterns and structures that suggest aesthetic intent, not just information encoding. Are we hearing art from an alien civilization? Music composed by non-human minds? The idea is simultaneously thrilling and unsettling. It makes them more real, more relatable. Beings who create beauty for its own sake, who value aesthetics, who express themselves through organized sound. Musicologists are analyzing the patterns, looking for cultural or cognitive insights. The preference for certain intervals might reveal how their sensory systems work, what harmonics sound pleasant versus discordant to their perception. The rhythmic choices might reflect biological periodicities, heartbeats or breathing rates or neural oscillations. Or maybe we're completely wrong about what we're hearing. Maybe these sounds serve functional purposes we don't recognize, carrying information in ways that happen to sound musical to human ears. Maybe they're calibration tones for equipment. Maybe they're propulsion system harmonics. Assuming their art might be projection, imposing our categories onto phenomena that don't fit them. The acoustic patterns suddenly resolve into something unmistakably linguistic. Phonemes, syllables, structured vocalizations with grammar-like patterns. We're hearing spoken language from entities that don't breathe Earth's atmosphere, don't possess human vocal anatomy, but somehow produce sounds that our ears can parse as speech. Linguists are losing their minds trying to analyze this. The language uses clicks, whistles, tonal variations, and sustained harmonic chords simultaneously. It's polyphonic communication, multiple sound streams conveying different layers of meaning at once. A single word might be a chord composed of 4 distinct frequencies, each one modifying the other's meanings in ways our linear languages can't replicate. Dr. Sarah Chin at Berkeley has made a breakthrough. She's been treating the language like a programming code rather than human speech, looking for recursive structures and logical operators. And she's found them. The language encodes conditional statements, loops, variables. It's not just describing things, it's instructing, teaching, providing executable knowledge. When her team runs these linguistic patterns through symbolic logic processors, they get coherent programs. Instructions for building devices. Algorithms for solving mathematical problems we've struggled with for decades. The language itself is computational, every sentence potentially functioning as software that could run on sufficiently advanced systems. This is how you transfer technology across interstellar distances. Not by shipping physical devices that might fail during centuries of travel. You broadcast the instructions, the complete specifications, the knowledge to build everything from scratch. Receiving civilizations become 3D printers for alien technology, reconstructing devices from transmitted blueprints. The ethical implications are profound. Do we build what they're describing? Some designs appear to be communication devices, possibly enabling real-time dialogue across light years through principles our physics suggests are impossible. Others look like energy systems that could solve our climate crisis or trigger runaway reactions that sterilize the planet. How do we know which is which? We're facing the ultimate trust problem. Accept gifts from strangers bearing incomprehensible technology, or reject potentially civilization-saving knowledge because we're afraid of Trojan horses? Every design could be genuine help or subtle sabotage. We have no way to verify intentions. Some nations are already beginning construction. China has announced they're building what appears to be a quantum communication array based on transmitted specifications. They claim to understand the principles well enough to proceed safely. Other scientists are skeptical, warning that incomplete understanding could lead to catastrophic failures. Russia is focusing on the energy systems, starting small-scale tests of what looks like a fusion reactor design far more elegant than anything we've developed. Initial results are promising but also concerning. The reaction produces exotic particles our detectors barely register, byproducts that shouldn't exist according to standard physics. Meanwhile, the United States is taking a more cautious approach, running extensive simulations before attempting physical construction. But simulations can only tell you so much. Eventually someone has to build actual hardware and flip the switch, hoping the math was correct and the aliens weren't lying. The European Space Agency has pivoted their interception mission. Instead of just observing, they're now planning to deliver a physical message to 3I/Atlas. A probe carrying greetings, information about humanity, questions encoded in mathematical formats. It's scheduled to launch in 5 days, attempting to reach the object before it passes Earth and potentially begins leaving the inner solar system. The message content has been debated intensely. What do you say to intelligence that's been watching you for 3,000 years? They already know everything about us that observation could reveal. Our languages, our cultures, our technologies, our conflicts. What information could we possibly provide that they don't already possess? The final message focuses on intent rather than information. We're trying to communicate our desire for peaceful contact, our willingness to learn, our hope that this encounter benefits both parties. We're including art, music, literature, things that might reveal the subjective experience of being human rather than just our objective capabilities. We're also asking questions. Direct queries encoded in mathematical language. Who are you? Where exactly did you come from? What is your purpose? Why reveal yourself now? Can you help us solve our existential challenges? Are others coming? Each question carefully phrased to be answerable with limited bandwidth if they choose to respond. The probe launches successfully, a modified commercial satellite with additional communication equipment and the message payload. It's the fastest thing humanity has ever built, burning fuel at unsustainable rates to achieve the velocity needed for intercept. Engineers give it a 70% chance of reaching optimal position before 3I/Atlas passes. And then 3I/Atlas does something that makes the mission partially irrelevant. It changes course. Not dramatically, but measurably. The anomalous accelerations that have puzzled us for months suddenly become coordinated, deliberate. The object is maneuvering, adjusting its trajectory with precision that confirms active propulsion systems. The new trajectory brings it closer to Earth. Not dangerously close, still well outside any collision risk, but closer than the original path predicted. The closest approach distance drops from 27.8 million kilometers to 18.3 million kilometers. It wants a better view. Or it wants us to have a better view. Either way, it's responding to our presence. Acknowledging the observers. Military advisors are nervous. Unscheduled course changes toward your planet aren't comforting when the object making them possesses technology you can't comprehend. Defense systems that were on routine alert are now at elevated readiness. Not expecting attack, but preparing for possibilities nobody can predict. The scientific community is mostly excited. Active maneuvering means active intelligence. We're not just receiving pre-recorded messages from a dead probe. Something is making decisions in real time, adjusting plans based on current conditions. The implications for potential communication are enormous. If 3I/Atlas can change course, it can presumably stop. It could enter orbit around Earth or take up position at a Lagrange point for extended observation and interaction. Or it could leave at any moment, accelerating to velocities we can't match, disappearing back into interstellar space before we've barely begun understanding what it offered. The transmissions are becoming more interactive. Instead of just broadcasting information, 3i/Atlas is now sending query patterns. Structured signals that look like questions, formatted in ways that suggest they're expecting responses. It's testing us, probing our communication capabilities, trying to establish genuine two-way dialogue. Radio telescopes are responding, transmitting carefully crafted answers to what we think the questions are asking. Do we understand mathematics? Yes, here's our proof. Do we understand physics? Yes, here are our equations. Can we encode visual information? Yes, here are images. The responses are basic, establishing baseline capabilities before attempting more sophisticated exchanges. And it's working. After each response, the next query from 3i/Atlas becomes more complex, building on confirmed understanding. It's like a standardized test, progressively harder questions determining our knowledge level. Except the test giver is an alien intelligence, and the subject matter is the nature of reality itself. Some questions we can't answer. Mathematical problems that exceed our computational capabilities. Physics questions requiring experimental data we haven't collected. Engineering challenges we lack the materials or tools to address. Each failed response gets noted, categorized, added to their growing profile of human civilization's current limitations. But we're also surprising them, apparently. Some of our answers approach problems from angles their questions didn't anticipate. Human creativity, our tendency toward lateral thinking and unexpected solutions, seems to be generating responses that don't fit their predicted patterns. The query structure adjusts, probing our problem-solving methodologies more deeply. Psychologists are fascinated by what this reveals about both parties. We're learning how they think by analyzing their questions. They're learning how we think by studying our answers. It's mutual cognitive mapping, each side building models of the other's intelligence architecture. Finding commonalities and differences, searching for translation bridges that allow genuine understanding. The cultural exchange is happening simultaneously. 3i/Atlas broadcasts what appear to be artistic works. Visual compositions using colors outside human perception ranges, which our instruments detect but our eyes can't see. We're rendering them into visible wavelengths, creating false color representations that might or might not capture their intended aesthetic. The compositions are alien but not incomprehensible. There are symmetries our brains recognize as beautiful. There are contrasts that create visual tension and resolution. There are patterns that suggest narrative or meaning even when we can't decode the specifics. Aesthetics might be more universal than we imagined, grounded in mathematical relationships that any intelligence would recognize. We're broadcasting back. Picasso, Hokusai, Pollock, artists whose work transcends mere representation. Music by Bach, Coltrane, traditional drumming from West Africa, Mongolian throat singing. Literature from every culture, from ancient epics to contemporary poetry. We're showing them the full spectrum of human creative expression. Hoping something resonates. There's no way to know if they appreciate it, understand it, or care. But the attempt feels important. We're not just exchanging technical data. We're introducing ourselves as beings with inner lives, subjective experiences, cultures worth knowing. We're hoping that matters to them, that they see us as more than data points in their galactic survey. Meanwhile, independent researchers have discovered something in the historical record. Ancient texts describing unusual celestial phenomena that might correspond to previous 3i/Atlas appearances or activities. A Babylonian astronomical diary mentioning a star that moved against the regular patterns. Chinese records of a wandering celestial object that appeared for several weeks before vanishing. Medieval European chronicles describing lights in the sky behaving in unexplainable ways. None of these accounts prove alien contact, but they're consistent with a probe occasionally becoming visible, allowing brief observations before returning to stealth. Maybe 3i/Atlas has revealed itself before, testing humanity's reactions at various developmental stages. Maybe those historical witnesses saw exactly what we're seeing now, but lacked the framework to understand or the technology to document properly. Archaeological sites are being revisited with new questions. Did ancient civilizations have contact we've interpreted as mythology? The Dogon people of Mali supposedly possess astronomical knowledge they shouldn't have, including information about Sirius B that wasn't confirmed by modern science until the 20th century. Skeptics have explained this away as cultural contamination from Western astronomers. But what if the explanation is stranger than that? Ancient Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki, beings from the heavens who brought knowledge to humanity. Hindu texts describe Vimanas, flying vehicles with capabilities that sound like spacecraft. Indigenous Australian Dreamtime stories describe sky beings who travel between worlds. Are these mythological imagination or cultural memories of real encounters distorted by time and oral transmission? The academic debate is intense. Mainstream scholars resist reinterpreting their fields through an ancient astronaut lens, pointing out that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that pattern matching in ancient texts proves nothing. Alternative researchers argue that dismissing all these parallels as coincidence requires its own kind of faith, a refusal to see obvious connections. Truth is probably somewhere between extremes. Some ancient accounts are pure mythology. Some might be garbled memories of natural phenomena misunderstood by pre-scientific observers. And some, maybe, just possibly, could be legitimate records of encounters with 3I/Atlas or similar probes during their previous appearances. We may never know for certain. Unless 3I/Atlas volunteers that information, shows us records of its past activities on Earth, we're left with tantalizing possibilities and insufficient evidence. The probe seems more focused on present interaction than historical clarification. The object is now close enough that amateur astronomers with good equipment can see surface details. Social media fills with images, time-lapse videos showing 3I/Atlas moving against the star field, backyard telescope views revealing the irregular shape and surface features. Millions of people are watching directly now, not filtered through official channels, seeing for themselves the visitor that's dominated global attention for months. And something is happening on its surface. Lights. Brief flashes appearing at various locations, too regular to be reflected sunlight, too coordinated to be random. The pattern of flashes looks almost like communication. Like someone is signaling with a mirror or lamp, but on a scale and with precision that suggests technological systems rather than manual operation. The flashing follows mathematical sequences again. Prime numbers, but faster this time, more compressed. Then switching to binary encoding, strings of flashes representing ones and zeros. The message is simple enough that anyone watching can decode it with patience and basic math knowledge. Its coordinates. Specific locations on Earth's surface being identified and marked. One by one latitude and longitude pairs transmitted through flashing lights visible to anyone looking up. The locations are significant: major cities, centers of science and learning, historical sites where human achievement reached notable heights. But they're also including coordinates for places we haven't built yet. Empty locations in the ocean. Positions in deserts and ice fields where nothing currently exists. What does that mean? Are they predictions? Instructions? Warnings about places we should avoid or promises about places we should develop? The ambiguity is maddening. Every new piece of information raises more questions than it answers. We're communicating, yes, but talking past each other, unable to bridge the gap between reference frames separated by hundreds of thousands of years of development. Unless that's about to change.